We bring you the story of Al Perez, a former landscaper who transformed his life by diving into the world of real estate investing. We're going to talk about how he made over $400,000 per year in deals and now owns over $100 million in assets. So if you're interested in quitting your 9 to 5 and want to be inspired by a captivating journey of somebody who made a better life for themselves, tune into this episode. And if you've listened to previous episodes and gotten value from it, leave us a review. It helps us make more content to get you over the edge to financial freedom.
The DealMachine REI Podcast. Everything you need to know to get started in real estate investing.
All right, so we've got Al Perez from just south of Chicago doing over 100 deals per year in Northwest Indiana. So Al, I'm just curious, now that you're doing 100 deals per year, how did you get started? It's pretty hard for me to imagine you not having done a deal before because you've just done so many.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So I started off in about 12 years ago, and I was working for a lawn care company doing door-to-door sales, and a friend of mine, he had a Rolex. And I was like, dude, how do you got a Rolex? We're both working the same job, making like 30, 40 grand a year. And he's like, well, I do some real estate. I said, well, can you teach me how to do that? And he's like, yeah, why don't you come up with the cash? And back then you could buy a small little 3-1 on a slab for, like $40,000, $50,000. And he was like, bring me 40, 50 grand. Let's do a deal and I'll show you how to do it. So it took me about a year. I started a little landscaping business on the side, just on the weekends, trimming bushes and doing whatever I can to scrounge up some extra cash. And finally, after a year, I did my first deal. I went up to him, was like, hey, I've got 50, 60 grand. Let's make this happen. So he brought me the house, a contractor. He's like, all right, I'll show you how to do this and we'll split the profit 50-50. Wow. It was about 12 years ago. Yeah.
Well, that's pretty amazing because, you were doing landscaping. That's actually quite a bit of cash to make in a year, 40, 50, 60 grand on top of your living expenses. Yeah. Did you have another job as well?
No, that was it. I really hustled. I learned that quickly that if you're cutting grass here in the Chicagoland area, you're getting like 30, 40 bucks a lawn. It's not much. But if you're pruning bushes and trees, it's like an art here. Like you can prune a tree for like $300-400, which is crazy to me.
Yeah.
So I had no idea what I was doing when I initially got started. So I was like, yeah, I could prune that tree and bush. And so I would make, $1,000 just in a few hours trimming a few, pruning a few hedges and stuff. So it was pretty lucrative. After about a year and a half, I was able to come up with the cash.
And when you started that business, people were pretty happy with their bushes, right? So were they just telling friends that they should use you as well?
Yeah. It was kind of word of mouth. It kind of fell on my lap because I was doing door-to-door sales, for triggering, and we only treated the lawn and we sprayed the bushes for like insects and stuff, but we didn't do any trimming. So a lot of times when I'm knocking doors, there were people saying, hey, can you trim these bushes? Can you prune this crabapple tree for me or whatever? And I was like, well, triggering can't, but I could, I'll do it after work, So it was just like a little side hustle I did to get my feet wet to buy my first real estate deal.
Yes. And I know that you spent that 50, 60 grand, but a lot of people listening, they're looking to get into wholesaling, which is something that you also have kind of switched to. Is that right?
Yeah, that is 2022. So last year I got my teeth kicked in with the rates. The rates went from 3% to 6.5%, 7% within a year or so. So a lot of the flips that I was doing, we're doing last year, we did about 140, 150 flips.
Dang.
So we cranked it out. So what happened though, at the last quarter of last year, I took about a $450,000 loss because I had a bunch of houses that I bought back in January that were, 3.5%, 4% interest rate. And by the time I sold them in October, November, December, the values went from 450 down to like 380, 390, just because of where the rates went. And so I ended up wiring money to closing 10, 20, 30 grand just to sell these things. And I was like, you know what?
Oh my gosh, you had to pay to close the property?
I had to send money.
Oh man, that's not good.
Yeah, that was the first time in 12 years I sent money to like 16 houses
Oh man.
to close. And I was like, you know what? I understood the market had shifted and it was a risk that I took. And I was like, you know what? I made a lot of really good money over the last 12 years. We've been flipping over 100 houses a year for about 5-6 years. So, made quite a bit of money doing that. And so I realized, you know what? I'm going to start transitioning. I'm only flipping houses that are worth under 300,000 because those seem in our market, those are still selling pretty easily. The values drop maybe only like 10, 12%, but those higher end homes, the values drop by 15, 20%. And so that really made a dent. So I transitioned and I started flipping just kind of a selective. So this year we'll do a little over 100 wholesale deals and we'll flip probably about 50 houses. So we'll still do 150 deals, except I'm going to wholesale 100 and I'm going to flip about 50 under $300,000.
So the way that you got in trouble was the market shifted while you owned a lot of property. Correct. You're doing 130 flips Correct. Per year. So that means you owned a lot of properties. Yeah. And you have to own them for 3 months or so, right? Enough time to actually flip it and do the work. And so you ended up owing more than what the property was worth after you were done, right? That's what happened?
That's exactly what happened. And it was only the ones that I was like $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 homes. Those were the big houses.
Okay.
The big rehabs, because typically like a $200,000 to $300,000 home here in Northwest Indiana, I can flip that in 3 months. But it was the $400,000 or $500,000 homes. I was, it was 100, 150K rehab. So I was taking a full year to rehab them. So that risk, that exposure, I mean, it was just a perfect storm because, from January when I bought it to when I sold in December, the value went down. So I learned a good lesson to, stay within $200,000 to $300,000 houses to flip because during a downturn, those still sell pretty easily out here. And then also wholesale, make a quick buck. Don't turn down a quick buck.
And so you end up making probably more on a flip, but it's less risk to wholesale, right?
Oh yeah. And what's interesting is right now in my market, I can make, 15, 20 grand on a wholesale deal. And I'm like, all right, if I flipped it, I'd make like 30. So what am I doing? Like, why not just make the quick 20 and then just wholesale it, then flip it and make an extra 10 and have all that risk and exposure. So I actually really enjoy wholesaling a whole lot more. And I've also transitioned because a couple of years ago, my accountant called me and he's like, hey, Al, you're going to pay, quite a bit of money in taxes because of all the flips that I was doing. He said, you need to start buying and holding rentals. So a couple of years ago, I started transitioning to buying about 500 rentals a year. So I'm on top of my flipping and wholesale operation, I'm picking up about 500 rentals a year. So
I can't fathom that. How are you like 500 rental? How are you finding 500?
So we're doing a lot of the direct marketing that we're doing. So it's mainly apartments. So I'm buying anywhere between a duplex, 4-unit, 10-unit. Last year, I bought about 560 rentals. One of them was a community. It was 144 unit. Another one was 122 unit. And then the rest were like 40 units, 60 units. So I've been buying about $50 million of apartments. And what I do is I cost seg it. So I bonus depreciate it. So I have a company like Madison Specs, Engineer Tax Services. They come in and they'll bonus depreciate the 5 and 15-year taxes and like upfront it. And so it offsets all my flipping, all my wholesaling income. And I actually get a carryover from year to year of depreciation that I don't end up using, and it falls into the next year.
Wow.
Which is nice. So,
well, that's one of the 4 big advantages of real estate is that you can depreciate it, which gives you a tax advantage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Interest.
Correct. Yeah.
So,
yeah. And if I was going to say, if you make really good money, you could depreciate it over 27 and a half years, or you can front load it. And so my account's like, hey, Al, to avoid, paying hundreds and hundreds of thousands in federal taxes, you got to bonus depreciate it. So I was able to pick up, some apartments and depreciate them. So,
And from what I understand, the advantage of apartments and multifamily is you can get more tax benefits like that than you can on a single family. Is that right?
that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. More tax benefits. It's just easier to manage as well. I would pull my hair out if I bought 500 single family houses. I don't even know how I could do that. That's just so
A
many.
lot of trans,
But, it is a
Yeah.
lot.
So I want to get back to wholesaling. A lot of our listeners are focused on one thing, getting their first wholesale deal. But I am just curious, like, what's it like to buy an apartment building? Like, you can get financing for that as well, right? You don't have to pay all cash for something so massive like that.
Correct. Yeah. And the first, I work with local banks. So when I started getting into it, I'm like, all right, I've got a few $1 million of private capital that I could deploy, but that's not going to cut it because I own now close to $100 million of assets in apartments. And it's like, I would tap out every local lender I got out here. So I started thinking like, you know what, like these big guys like Donald Trump and these guys that own billions of dollars, like they work with banks. So I went with a local bank and I was like, hey, what would you guys do? Would you guys look at financing apartments? And it was a perfect storm because in 2020, when COVID happened, there was so much cash in the banks. The average savings account, at least in our area, went up by over $2,000 per account because people weren't taking vacations. They got a stimulus check. And so literally these banks, the one I work with, they said they had $400 million of excess capital. And to them, once you go to the bank and you deposit money, well, that's a liability for the bank. They got to deploy that. So
Yeah.
I was finding banks were just like eager to lend during that time and they had hundreds of millions of dollars. So I've got one bank that lent me 30 million bucks in the last 12 months.
That's wild.
It was, 20% down.
Yeah.
But buy an apartment, buy like a 4-unit for 400,000, get a loan for 320 and put 80 grand down.
Yeah.
So
That's wild. And all because some guy wore a Rolex.
yeah, right.
The power of a Rolex.
That's right.
Talk to me a little bit more. I know you said you started a landscape side hustle to raise this money to do this first deal with this guy. I know I've asked you before what your life was like before real estate investing, and you had spoken of like a software company that you thought was your job, but pretty boring. Is that what you're doing before landscaping?
Yeah. So I went from my job at Triggering. I was, at that point I was flipping like 2 houses a year, 3 houses a year. So it wasn't enough for me to quit my job. I ended up getting a job in downtown Chicago for a software company. And we're selling ERP software, which is enterprise resource planning software. And yeah, it was pretty boring. And the thing is with Triggering, like you're making 10, 20 sales a week, so, it keeps it fun and active. But with software, it's like you're selling $1 million software package. So you're closing like 2 to 4 deals a year, which is like super slow. So you can go a few months without closing any deals. And so anyhow, so it was kind of boring and it was long days, but I was finding on my lunch breaks, I couldn't get enough of real estate. So I was looking for deals and I only found deals. All the houses I flipped when I got started was just off the MLS. So I would on my lunch break, look on the MLS, find a house, and I would go out and look at it after I got off of work. And it would be sometimes 7, 8 o'clock at night. I'd have a flashlight going through a house that I saw on MLS over the lunch and locked up deals that way. And I had just bought all my deals off MLS. And finally, after like 12 years or so or no, not 12, I'm sorry. After like 4 years of flipping homes on the side, I was like, you know what, I need to make the leap and just go full time.
Please open up your podcast app right now and leave us a review and let us know what you thought of this episode. It means so much because the reviews help us get in front of more people. And the more people we can get in front of, the more we can help them achieve financial freedom. And we also get more energy to put more content out like this to help you. So by leaving us a review, it will give you more content to come to help you along in your journey. Thank you so much.
Gotcha.
Because you were way more interested because you didn't want to do 4 deals a year. You wanted to do 4 deals a day.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, exactly. And I started, when I made the leap, I was doing about 25 to 30 flips a year already. So I was like, you know what, I'm making a few $100,000. Like, what am I doing at this job making 150 grand a year when I'm making twice that on the side. So it was, for me, it was just the capital. I was like, okay, I don't want to just flip 30 homes a year. Like that's like maybe 10 at a time. Like I want to go big. And so I ended up quitting my job, and I went to a private lender, and I was like, hey, would you lend me some funds? And he's like, Al, you've done close to 100 flips. Like, yeah, I'd lend you some money. So that weekend I raised $3 million of private capital, and I went gangbusters and started doing about 100 flips a year from there.
Al, have you ever failed at anything in your life? This whole thing.
Oh, geez, yeah, success after success here.
And no, I've had a lot of, I had my teeth kicked in just last year. So
Yeah, that's right.
it was like this thing was just from when I jumped in 2010 or so. I mean, the market tanked in 2008. So when I jumped in, it was like, I've had nothing but an upswing for the last 13, 14 years. So the last quarter of last year was an eye opener for me. So
Got it. Well, it's just amazing. You've had such an amazing run, and that's only a blip on the radar of your overall success. So I'm curious, you have done more wholesaling now, and you started by getting these MLS deals. Do you still do MLS deals, or how do you find these wholesale deals?
I do. I do a little bit of everything now. So to pull in 150 deals a year, like you've got to have multiple lines in the water, so if you will. So I actually find like probably 15 deals off the MLS every year, just because that's what I've known. So I can spot them pretty quickly. We do DealMachine, so we do driving for dollars. So we got a couple guys driving, taking pictures and uploading them to the DealMachine app. So we get, actually, some of our best margins are on DealMachine. So we'll pull off probably about 5 to 7 deals a year from DealMachine, and those could be $40,000-$50,000 rips. So those are awesome. So Thank you for that.
Oh yeah, it pays for your $99 subscription fee, is what I'm hearing.
Exactly. Yeah, it definitely pays for itself. It's our best ROI for sure.
What do you look for on the MLS versus what do those guys look for when they're adding properties to DealMachine?
Yeah. So, like the DealMachine, they're driving around looking for tall grass, lots of newspapers on the walkways, falling down gutters, and they'll just boom, take a picture and add it to the app. And it makes it so seamless, because before I used to write it down on a notepad, write down the address, go back to the house, look up on the assessor site, see who owns it, send a mail piece. It just was a long way to do it. So yeah, so they're just driving around. I've got a couple drivers, and they're rocking and rolling. So it's going good, and it's right with the formulas that you guys lay out. Like hey, if you have 300 pictures, you're going to get a deal. You know what I mean? So you got so we look at it from that standpoint, like how many pictures can we get of these properties that they work. So for the MLS stuff, it's usually just like if it's a foreclosed property, the key is you got to jump on it quick, and I'm very fast. Like if it hits the MLS, like I'm out on that property within an hour, submitting an offer. So just got to be quick to the gun on that. So.
And do you look for rundown ones on the MLS?
Yeah, rundown, foreclosures, REOs.
Okay.
Just, I have a bunch of agents that have me set up on auto alert. So like anything that says fixer upper, handyman special, anything like that, I get an email alert the second it hits the market, and usually I got an offer in within an hour or so.
So, okay. Are you giving them list price on these things that you're reacting quickly to?
Yeah, usually list price, or sometimes I'll try to knock them for like 10 grand. But if I feel like they're like, hey, we're going to wait it out 3 days and get multiple offers, then I'm like, all right, let's just lock it up full price right now. Like call it a day. So
Gotcha.
I'll try to get it at full price or a little under.
So they've obviously priced it well. You're not just making full price random offers. These are fixer uppers. They've priced it well, and you're just wanting to get it locked up.
Exactly. Yeah. So
And then you're wholesaling these deals?
No, so those are usually ones that I'm flipping, just because I'm getting them off the MLS. The guys don't like it if I'm trying to wholesale it to them.
Yeah.
I have wholesaled a couple, but for the most part, I'm flipping those. And then the stuff I get off market from direct mail, DealMachine, PPC, Google Ads, Facebook, those leads I'm wholesaling those. So.
And how many drivers do you have driving for you on the regular?
So I've only got a couple. I need to expand that. I talked to my marketing manager about adding some more drivers because I mean it's all a numbers game when it comes down to it. The more drivers you have, the more pictures get uploaded. So
Do you guys
so
take
far
pictures of all your deals still, or do you use, because we've transitioned from taking pictures to using the street pick stuff?
Yeah, we've done some of that. So it's kind of a little bit of hybrid, a little bit of both. Sometimes we're finding that we get a little, it's a better picture than Google Earth, so we'll get a little bit more current, a little better picture doing the driving for dollars. But we do like that Google picture makes it a lot easier.
Interesting.
So,
How many driving for dollars leads are you getting added per month?
so the guys are doing a little bit of both. Like my drivers aren't full time. They'll work, they go to college and things like that. So I haven't got full-time drivers. So, each one's adding a few hundred a week. So, call it maybe 2,000, about 2,000 a month or so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Al, can you show me your wrist right now? Are you wearing a Rolex yourself?
No, I've got it set down on my,
Oh, nice.
yeah, I got a little, there you go.
That's gorgeous. It's a little blurry. What model is that?
It is the Yachtmaster. It's a Rolex Yachtmaster.
Yeah, well, it's beautiful.
I love it.
And it's poetic that you got your own after that got you started. How else?
Right.
Obviously, your life's changed, right? Since you were landscaping and bored out of your mind selling 4 software deals per year. How else has your life changed now that you've been doing real estate for 12 years?
Yeah, I mean, it's changed dramatically. I get to, I don't feel like it's work. It's just like a fun adventure every day to get up and to go find deals. It's a game changer. I have realized a lot in the last 12 years that now that I'm buying apartments and rentals, I actually enjoy that more than flipping and wholesaling, just because I understand that someone told me that the rich sell, the wealthy people never sell. And so I looked back and I was like, you know what? Yeah, the rich people sell, wealthy people never sell. And I was like, I wish I held on to some of these houses that I flipped and wholesaled, especially 10 years ago. Like the values that I was fixing and flipping and selling them for 120, 130 grand, they're now selling for 300. And I'm like, had I just rented them out and kept them, like I'd be a lot further along. So I'm understanding the power now of leverage and wealth building. So I figure like the $100 million I bought in the last 2 years in apartments, I mean, in 20 years, 25 years, that debt's paid off and it's doubled in value. So it at least doubled.
Yeah.
Right. So now I've got $200 million in 25 years for 2 years worth of work. And I was like, man, why, what am I doing? So I'm using all my flipping money, all my wholesaling money, and I'm just pouring it into apartments, long-term holds. And then I'm leveraging the bank. I'm putting, it's 20% down. So I just got to come up with the 20% down, leverage the banks for the debt, leverage tenants to pay off the debt. And rents have never gone down, right? In the last 30 years, they only go up. So it's like, why? This is like the holy grail of real estate investing. And I wrote down like how many flips, like if I flipped a house or wholesale, my average profit's 20 grand, right? So if you do $20,000 divided by 200 million, I mean, that's how many flips and wholesale deals I'd have to do. And it's like, dude, I'd be like 200 something years old to get the amount of flips done versus just leveraging debt and leveraging, tenants to pay off the debt. So my mind shift has totally changed in the last 2 years.
Yes. And what I'm hearing is that your wholesaling operation provides cash for you to do these buy and holds. And it starts with wholesaling. Right. It starts with generating that cash in a way that's going to be less risk, but give you that cash quickly. So I love that. And I was reminded of, we had a past guest, Aaron Amuchastegui, and Ryan and I both took away from him that if you hold the property, let's say you gain $100,000 in appreciation. If you sell it, you have to pay taxes on that money that you actually just earned from that sale. But if you continue to hold it and rent it, and you could actually take out another loan on that additional equity which would be tax-free money that you could use.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a
Exactly.
big aha for me. And you're right about rents not going down. Maybe there might be slight variations in markets from month to month, but I looked at the Fred chart, which is the Federal Reserve, published data back in 2008. And I could tell you it didn't go down. It stayed even for like a few months during 2008 when that catastrophe was happening, but then it just kept going up, and it hasn't ever gone down on that chart. So I will agree with you on that. I've done the research, and I love that about real estate.
Here's something that I want to ask, Al, is with kind of going back to these guys that are starting out in wholesaling, and they have, 2 good months where they pull $100,000 in assignment fees. What is your thoughts on them? Should they start investing early in rental properties in the game, or is that something that you would encourage them to wait a little bit longer?
No, the sooner the better. So what I would recommend is every 4 deals, like if you do 4 flips or 4 wholesales, buy a rental. So do 4 flips, 4 wholesales, whatever, buy a rental. So 4 rental, 4 flips, wholesales, rental. And just like start adding that to your portfolio, because you're not going
to take out what you need to live on, what you need to pay your bills, put food on the table, and then take the rest and invest it in another property.
Exactly. Yeah, it's the beauty of just the poor people complain about inflation. It's the wealthy people that love inflation, right? So years ago, when I had no assets, no rentals, I was complaining about the gas prices being $4 or $5 and the groceries going up. But if you don't
feel it, and this is not a brag session at all, but I can tell you, you do not feel those things. They don't impact you as much when you're setting yourself up for the future and you're stacking assets that pay you regularly. You're not going to feel the effects of those things as much as if you're going to constantly have to keep up wholesaling just to keep up with the inflation stuff. If you're not stacking something up, if you're not putting assets in your portfolio that are going to pay you, you're only doing yourself a disservice, because to me, the game was never, I'm going to grind every day for the rest of my life. That was never the intent. The idea is I'm going to grind so I can get some assets so I don't have to do this all the time.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the beauty of real estate. You want to get in a position where you don't have to work anymore, where your money works for you. And that's the thing, the beauty with inflation. If inflation goes up 10%, well, if you own, $1 million worth of rentals, well, your rents just went up 10% and you just made, $100,000 for doing nothing but raising rents by 10%. So you're on the other side of the equation at that point. So it's just something, it's been a game changer. So I definitely encourage, if you're just getting started in real estate, don't be so short-minded and like I was, and I just would flip, just put the money in the bank, do the next deal, flip, I was like, why didn't I just hold on to some of this stuff? So I'd encourage you guys, every 4 or 5 deals you do, put money in the bank, pay your bills, but also buy a rental.
Yep.
Love that.
Have to.
So Al, what else do you like to spend your money on besides watches?
I'm a car guy. I got the Ferrari shirt.
I see that
one.
I almost wore my car shirt today, and then I opted not to.
This is Home Depot, actually, a guy at Home Depot. I'm one of their larger clients. He made this for me. It's out of wood and carved it.
Oh, that's so
cool. But
that is,
yeah.
There must be big bills you give at Home Depot for them to make you a plaque like that. You don't do that for Eddie.
We spend a couple million a year there with materials, but yeah, I love cars. So Ferrari's been my dream car since I was a little kid. An F430 Spider. So I purchased that about 5 years ago. So I just enjoy cars. I'm a part of a car group out here locally that I run, and we go out driving every, few times a year. And we got about 30 exotic cars, Lambos, Ferraris and stuff that we all kind of drive and just have a good time. So I enjoy cars.
That's awesome. Do you have any other cars? The F430 is beautiful.
F430 Spider, and then I've got a Bentley. It's more of my daily driver. I take that out pretty much every day. And it's a Continental GT. So it's a 2-door, it's a coupe. It's nice. It's black, black car, black leather, and it's fast. It's got a W12 engine. So with Bentleys, they don't call them a V12. It's a W12 because the way the pistons are, it's shaped like a W, I guess.
Interesting.
So it's a W12, but it's 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds.
Yeah.
And it weighs over like 6,000 pounds.
Oh my God.
Solid, but it's super, super fast. So it's a fun drive.
So which car?
We gotta go out driving sometime.
I would absolutely love that. Well, I want to do a drive in California on Highway 1. I think that would just be
awesome.
Would be beautiful. I'm curious, which car do you take on a seller appointment?
Yeah, you know what? Actually, I'll bring the Bentley, and a lot of times it actually helps in the situation where they're like, oh wow, like I could tell, I know you could afford this, before to buy the house.
Yeah.
So I've had some where it helped the situation out. So I'll take that. I've got a truck.
Is only like a $10,000 house, and you roll up in a Bentley.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I would be carrying it if it was a $10,000 house. But we're part of Gary's not too far from here, so we do have properties out there that we'll buy for like
Gary, Indiana.
15 grand.
Yeah, Gary,
Indiana.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So I've got an acquisitions guy that does all of Gary, so I don't step foot out there just as I don't want to get robbed especially driving around in those cars.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, Al, thank you so much for taking the time, sharing your journey, which was awesome. That it started with that Rolex, you got one of your own, you're spending more time with your family, and you're loving the cars, and you're not feeling the effects of inflation either. So do you have any final advice for somebody who's just wanting to just inspired themselves, right, to wanting to get into real estate?
Learn the tax laws, and that's key, because you're taking the active income, which is taxed at the highest, right? Flipping houses, wholesaling houses, Airbnb is taxed as active income. So that's 30, 35, 40% in taxes. So take that active income, turn it into passive income by buying rentals, apartments, a 2-unit, a 4-unit, whatever. And then use that passive income and also put that back into those units. So what I do is I get the rental income and I go back and I spend all of that back in the unit. So we'll make, because we've got close to 1,000 rentals now, we'll make, $1 million plus of income off that passive income. Well, that's still taxed at 15, 20%. So that's 150 to 180,000 in taxes. So take that rental income, put it back, update the house, the rentals, fix them up, put new flooring in, whatever, spend it, and then you're able to get $200-300 more per month on that rental, and then take that out on a loan. So the following year, go back to the bank and say, hey, I've got these rentals, I'm getting more of income, and then take those loans out tax free and learn to live off of the loans. So just understand the tax strategy, not just making money, but what's the best way to live off the money I make at tax, that's tax the least. So,
well, I couldn't agree more with starting with making the money. That's where it all starts, and focusing on what is important. And we also hired a tax guy that helped us save some tax money or just get a little bit more strategic about 3 years into my business. And so I would agree that that's been the path that I've taken as well.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Thank you, Al. I appreciate it so much. I know you're a busy guy, and I appreciate you taking the time today.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Of course. Go have a nice drive out there in that Spider convertible.
There we go.
Sounds good.
We'll see you.
All right. Take care, guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the DealMachine Real Estate Investing Podcast. Please leave us a review and follow along wherever you're listening to your podcast.